So how is it you find yourself here today? Oh, Joanne is the instigator, yes. So what prompted you to say yes when Joanne said, well, let's go over to Wayne this morning?
I'm ready to go deeper always. And it was really wanting to find the truth, the solution in the truth, not just outside stuff. I know the solution is here
Mhm,
to everything,
mhm,
but I have trouble sometimes remembering that or taking the time to get close to them.
mhm.
And so I end up trying to find the solution out there, which is always empty.
Mhm.
So I know when I'm around people that know the truth or have experienced it more deeply, that it lifts me.
Mhm. I don't know how familiar you are with these non-dual teachings, and
Not very.
well, there's a term used, it's a Sanskrit term called satsang, and satsang is literally translates as a gathering in truth, and it is precisely that which you're referring to. The satsang is both the event and nominally the group. The group is actually called the Sang, but the satsang is this gathering of truth. And it does when there is, and here's the crucial part, when there is resonance, when there is this quality of additional openness, then that the energy of the satsang and of the sangha hopefully lifts you up. And that is generally the case.
Yep.
I have actually been in a few satsangs where the energy was horrible, but that's rare.
Yeah.
It's rare. Now, what's interesting and is worth looking at if you're interested is how is it that even when we go, okay, I feel better, and when I do that, we don't do it. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to look at what's going on there, because presumably, if we had the power to design our lives, we would design our lives in such a way that we did only the most beneficial things for us. We would eat like 100% great. We would only associate, with the highest level of people when we could. We would design our lives to be more generous and loving and kind and all of those things. So the fact that we don't must indicate something. And so in this teaching, we point to that and say, have a look. And maybe it's worth investigating. Maybe it's worth looking at what is responsible ultimately for what's happening. And where that gets challenging is with the difficult stuff, the negative stuff. We have a tendency to ascribe the positive things. So when we're loving and generous and we're in the flow, that this is God's work. This is, we're in the energy of the divine, and this is spiritual. And then when we're selfish and we're self-centered and we're dealing with, the crap of all that stuff, then the story we tend to tell most of the time is that, well, I'm screwing up. I'm responsible for this. That it's me, and I should be better. I should be other than I am. I should obviously be more godlike. So this particular teaching, this living teaching of Advaita, is basically echoing what you find in a text you may be familiar with, where we say God is everything or God is nothing. If we really subscribe to the fact that God is everything, everything includes us.
Yes.
You see? And so the everything includes us and what we do and what we think and what we feel. So if God is everything, then God includes that. And God includes the murder. And God includes the rapist. And God includes all of the ugly shit also. Because God is either everything or nothing. I mean, that's the principle. And as that principle moves from a intellectual principle or a pointer to an intuitive recognition and understanding that all that is happening, all that is manifest is God in movement, then what we have is, even amidst the storm, even when there's pain, even when there's difficulty, even when there's ugliness, even when all of that, underneath that is peace. The experiences of turmoil, the experiences of difficulty, the experiences of pain, but underneath all of that is peace.
Yes.
And that is what is often talked about as the peace that surpasses all understanding, because it's not conditional, it's not intellectual, it's not experiential. It is simply the presence that supports the manifestation, all that is manifest, both positive and negative as we experience. So that's this teaching sort of in a nutshell.
Can you still talk about my will versus God's will, and I have to get my will in line with God's will, and kind of referring back to the bigger question about free will, and can you kind of speak to that from the Advaita?
Well, I'm within other teachings and the different meanings of AA, for example, can have very different approaches and teachings within them. And so what they hold to be, quote, true can be very different from what another meaning might hold true. That said, what we can most comfortably say is that none of it is the truth. These are all pointers. They are all ways of encouraging you, hopefully, to look within to find how is it that you act, how do what you do. Not philosophically, but in a very immediate sense. What is propelling me to act as I am? And you can say, well, it's my, my upbringing and my this and my that. Terrific. And then we go deeper. What is responsible for your being born to these parents, being in these situations, having the genetic makeup that you have? What is underneath all of that is affecting or informing your thoughts and your decisions and your, quote, will, your actions? when you get down to that level, then we resign from the debating society. We're no longer concerned with arguing the pointers.
Mhm.
Because it's like saying, what's better, a hammer or a screwdriver? What is superior? Well, have their uses, but one isn't any truer than the other. And so when we look at these pointers that are used in the different teachings, that we need to align your will with God, and please make God make me an instrument of thy peace, and all these other pointers that you hear all over the book. As long as you recognize that they are not true, they are not true. They are simply pointers to a truth that can only be recognized in a very, very personal way. So in teachings where they talk about a God of your understanding, what they're really pointing to is that this kind of deep intuitive connection, this deep inner sense of what you are. What are we? What is our true nature? How is it that this collection of chemicals and impulses and energies thinks and talks and acts, sometimes badly, sometimes well, but it does all of those. How is it that that's happening? Yeah.
I am intellectually self-sufficient.
Uh-huh.
And so I do all these things and feel like I'm close to God, and whatever, I do the work, and I've gotten down to some very deep, deep truths.
Uh-huh.
And yet it still brings me down. It's not smashed. It's like these old ideas fixated in there, and their voices are so strong that I don't know how to get beyond. That's what.
To varying degrees, what the quote spiritual search is about. It is a transcendence, if you will, of the primacy of what you're talking about as this intellectual self. Now, importantly, when I say the primacy of that, what I'm referring to is that process doesn't go away. The intellectual activity continues, but it isn't primary. It isn't like true. That what gets everything screwed up is the claim that my perspective, what I've figured out and what I see, is true. In an absolute sense, that's the primacy of the intellectual process when it claims to be God. It claims to know, to be the thing. And so this spiritual process is one in which that claim is smashed. That claim is seen to be false.
There seems to be this assumption of like, how do I let go? How do I realize this?
That's what gets smashed.
That's what gets smashed.